Extreme Ownership: How U.S. Navy SEALs Lead and Win by Jocko Willink. Summary and analysis by Brevreds. Chapter 1. Extreme Ownership. It's the middle of a mission in Ramadi, Iraq, and the temperature is soaring well over 100 degrees. Dust and sand fill the air, making it hard to see and even harder to breathe. You can imagine the thick, gritty taste of dust with every breath the soldiers take. It's a city torn apart by war, where every corner could hide an enemy or an explosive device. Jocko Willink, a Navy SEAL officer, is leading his team on a mission to root out insurgents, working alongside Iraqi soldiers and other American military units. As the operation progresses, tensions rise. The city is a labyrinth of narrow streets, low buildings, and abandoned homes. Radio communications between the units start to falter, with static-filled messages breaking through sporadically. Commands and updates crackle through the airwaves, but not everything is coming through clearly. This is a major problem because in a city as hostile as Ramadi, losing communication can mean the difference between life and death. Jocko's team is advancing cautiously through the area when suddenly all hell breaks loose. Gunfire erupts nearby. It's rapid, deafening, and relentless. Bullets zing past, bouncing off walls and tearing into the dusty street. There's chaos, shouting, and the unmistakable staccato bursts of automatic rifles. As Jocko listens over the radio, trying to figure out what's happening, he realizes something horrifying. Some of the gunfire is coming from his own team's position, aimed toward another group of American soldiers. In that moment, Jocko's heart sinks. It's friendly fire, a situation where U.S. forces mistakenly attack their own side, thinking they're shooting at the enemy. He knows that this kind of mistake can have devastating consequences. Not only does it put lives at risk, but it shatters morale. It's the type of mistake that could ruin an entire mission. Jocko rushes to the scene. He sees the aftermath, confusion, soldiers catching their breath, and the grim reality of what's just happened settling in. He could already see how the debrief might go: angry commanders demanding answers, fingers pointed, blame flying. But instead of trying to find someone to fault, Jocko does something unexpected. He gathers everyone around and says, "It's my fault. I am the commander, and I am responsible for everything that happens here." At first, his team is stunned. They expected excuses, blame shifting, maybe a list of what everyone else did wrong. But Jocko takes all the blame on himself. He explains how poor communication, unclear instructions, and a failure to deconflict the mission space led to the situation. He doesn't just stop there, though. He digs deeper into the mistakes that were made, including his own missteps in planning and communication, and then lays out a plan to ensure it never happens again. It's a hard lesson to swallow, but it changes everything. His willingness to take ownership makes the rest of the team more willing to own up to their mistakes too. They're no longer afraid of facing the truth, and that makes them more effective. Instead of worrying about covering up errors, they start focusing on fixing them. By taking this approach, Jocko earns the respect of not only his team but also his superiors. They see that he isn't just a commander, he's a leader willing to put the mission and the team above his own ego. The mission moves forward, and the mistakes aren't repeated. The whole team becomes sharper, more disciplined, and more focused. Key lesson: taking ownership means being responsible for everything in your world, whether it's your job, your relationships, or your personal growth. When you take responsibility, you create an environment where everyone can learn and improve without fear. It's not about taking the blame, it's about making things better. Chapter 2. No bad teams, only bad leaders. The scene shifts to the BUDS, Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training Grounds in Coronado, California, where the Pacific Ocean roars against the shore. And the air is filled with the sound of instructors barking orders. The training is designed to push every trainee to their breaking point. It's a freezing pre-dawn morning, and the trainees are covered head to toe in sand, their bodies shaking from the cold. This is Hell Week, an infamous part of SEAL training known for its brutal, sleep-deprived conditions. On the beach, groups of trainees stand with their boats, small rubber boats that weigh about 200 pounds when dry, but feel twice as heavy after being soaked by the cold ocean. They hoist these boats onto their heads, arms straining as they run up and down the beach, in and out of the water, trying to beat the other teams. Each team has 6 or 7 men, and they have to work together perfectly if they want to win. The races are grueling, their legs and backs aching from carrying the boat, their hands blistered from gripping it. Boat Crew 2 is a mess. They're coming in last place in nearly every race, barely able to keep up. You can hear the frustration in their voices as they yell at each other. "Come on, push harder!" their leader shouts, but it only seems to make things worse. Their faces are drawn tight with exhaustion and anger, blaming each other for every setback. Every time they come in last, they face additional punishment, more push-ups, more sit-ups, more time in the icy surf. Morale is at rock bottom. Meanwhile, Boat Crew 6 is thriving. They finish first almost every time. The team moves like a well-oiled machine, hoisting their boat up and running through the surf with a rhythm that seems effortless. Their leader keeps them focused and motivated, not by shouting but by setting the pace and showing them how to work together. The instructors decide to make a change. They switch the leaders between the two crews. Now the leader of the struggling Boat Crew 2 takes over the high-performing Boat Crew 6, while the successful leader of Boat Crew 6 is put in charge of Boat Crew 2. It's a true test of leadership to see if the problem really lies with the team, or if the issue is with how they are being led. The results are almost immediate. Under the new leader, Boat Crew 2 transforms. The leader doesn't yell or blame the team for their mistakes. Instead, he sets small, achievable goals for each race, encouraging them and correcting mistakes as they go. He makes sure that every member knows their role, from the person steering the boat to the ones keeping the rhythm. The change in attitude spreads like wildfire. Suddenly, they're paddling faster, working in sync, and their confidence begins to build. By the end of the day, they're no longer the last to finish. They even win a few races. Meanwhile, Boat Crew 6, now with the leader who had struggled with Boat Crew 2, starts to face more difficulties. They don't fall apart completely, they're still a strong team, but they aren't winning every race anymore. It becomes clear that the difference wasn't in the physical strength or skill of the teams, but in how the leaders guided their crews. The struggling crew just needed a leader who could show them how to believe in themselves and work together. The instructors smile as they watch this unfold. They've seen it 100 times before. A strong leader can turn around even the most struggling team, while a leader who doesn't know how to inspire and guide can hold back even the most talented group. The lesson is unmistakable. With the right leadership, any team can succeed. Key lesson: true leadership is about creating a culture where people feel empowered to give their best. It's not about yelling or forcing people to do their jobs, it's about showing them how to succeed, even when they think they can't. It's about making sure every person on the team feels like they are contributing to something bigger than themselves. Chapter 3: Believe in the mission. The sun is starting to dip below the horizon in Ramadi, casting long shadows across the crumbling buildings. It's another mission, and this time the stakes are high. The goal is to secure a neighborhood infested with enemy fighters, a place where every alley could hide a sniper and every building could be rigged with explosives. It's the kind of assignment that makes you question why you're even there in the first place. The Navy SEALs have been working with other military units to secure the area, trying to clear it so that local Iraqi families can return to their homes. But the mission is daunting, and the SEALs are starting to feel the weight of it. Some of them wonder why they should risk their lives for a few city blocks. The fighting is fierce, with constant exchanges of gunfire echoing through the dusty streets. Each day, they face the grim reality that they might lose someone from their team. In the middle of the tension, Jocko gathers the team for a briefing. He knows that if they don't believe in what they're doing, they won't give their best. And in a place as dangerous as Ramadi, that can be deadly. So he starts breaking it down for them, step by step. He tells them about how this neighborhood is a key part of the strategy to push the insurgents out of the city, how their efforts are helping to reduce attacks on American soldiers across the region. He explains that by securing this area, they are making a real difference for the local families who have been driven out by violence. He shows them how their actions fit into the bigger picture of the war effort. At first, there's silence in the room, just the sound of their gear shifting as they listen, but slowly the mood begins to change. The SEALs sit up straighter, their eyes sharpening with focus. They start asking questions, wanting to know more about the strategy and their role in it. They begin to understand that this isn't just another mission, it's a chance to make a real impact. And when they go back out into the field, it's with a new determination. They fight harder, plan more carefully, and work together seamlessly, because now they understand why they're fighting. Key lesson: believing in the mission isn't just a nice idea, it's essential. When people understand why their work matters, They are willing to put in the effort needed to overcome any challenge. As a leader, it's your job to make sure that your team sees the bigger picture and understands how their efforts contribute to the overall goal. Chapter 5. Cover and Move. It's another night in Ramadi, and the streets are eerily quiet. The darkness is thick, pressing in from all sides, and the only light comes from the moon reflecting off the rooftops. Jocko's team is on a joint operation with an Iraqi military unit, aiming to sweep through a section of the city known to harbor insurgents. The plan is clear: the SEALs will cover one section, while the Iraqi soldiers move forward to secure the target building. But as they begin the operation, things start to unravel. The Iraqi unit, nervous and unfamiliar with night operations, hesitates. They stall in the middle of the street, unsure whether to advance. Jocko's team, positioned to provide cover fire, watches anxiously, knowing that if the Iraqis don't move soon, they'll all be sitting ducks. The silence becomes tense, and every shadow seems like it could hide an enemy. Suddenly, the air is filled with the sharp cracks of gunfire. Insurgents, hidden in the dark alleys, seize the opportunity to strike. Bullets zip past, slamming into walls, throwing up clouds of dust. The SEALs return fire, but they know they can't hold their position forever. If the Iraqi soldiers don't move, they'll be overwhelmed. Jocko quickly radios the leader of the Iraqi unit, urging them to push forward, but fear has taken hold. He can hear the hesitation in their voices, the uncertainty. Realizing that direct orders aren't working, Jocko changes tactics. He calls for one of his SEALs, a guy known for being calm under pressure, and sends him out to meet the Iraqi unit face to face, encouraging them forward. This SEAL, keeping low and moving quickly, reaches the Iraqis and starts leading them, step by step, through the darkness toward their objective. As the Iraqi soldiers see the SEAL's confidence, their fear starts to melt away. They begin moving, covering each other as they make their way toward the building. With Jocko's team providing steady cover fire, the operation finds its rhythm. The combined forces reach the target building, sweep it for insurgents, and secure the area without losing a single man. When the gunfire finally stops and the dust settles, Jocko reflects on what just happened. It wasn't fancy tactics or high-tech gear that won the day, it was teamwork. The SEALs provided cover while the Iraqis moved, and then the roles reversed when it was time for the SEALs to advance. They survived because they worked together, supporting each other through the chaos. Key lesson: in any team, you have to support one another. If one side moves, the other has to cover. It's not about glory or being the hero, it's about making sure the entire team succeeds. When everyone understands their role and focuses on helping each other, you can overcome even the toughest challenges. Chapter 6. Simple. The heat of the midday sun in Ramadi is oppressive, bearing down on the city like a relentless weight. Dust fills the air, making it hard to see, and the sound of distant gunfire echoes through the streets. Jocko and his team are planning a complex mission with multiple units. The goal is to clear a densely packed neighborhood that's become a stronghold for insurgents. The plan is intricate, involving different units attacking from multiple angles, with specific timings and coordinated movements. As they brief the plan to the rest of the troops, Jocko notices something unsettling: blank stares, furrowed brows, and whispered conversations among the soldiers. The plan, while thorough, is difficult to follow. It's filled with details about timings, locations, and contingencies, and the more he explains, the more confused the team seems to get. Jocko decides to stop the briefing and ask questions to gauge their understanding. He picks out a few soldiers and asks them to explain the plan back to him. They struggle, missing key details and mixing up steps. That's when it hits him: the plan is too complicated. If the team can't understand it clearly in the briefing room, there's no way they'll execute it effectively on the chaotic battlefield. So Jocko does what might seem counterintuitive. He scraps the original plan, even though he's spent hours crafting it, and starts over. This time, he focuses on simplicity. He boils it down to 3 key objectives: securing a specific building, setting up defensive positions, and maintaining a clear path of retreat. Each unit has a straightforward task, and there's no room for confusion. The team's response is immediate. The soldiers relax and their focus sharpens. When Jocko asks them to repeat the plan, they nail every detail. And when they finally launch the operation, it goes off without a hitch. The SEALs and their allied units move through the neighborhood with precision, achieving their objectives quickly and efficiently. By the end of the day, they've cleared the area and returned to base with minimal casualties. Looking back, Jocko sees how close they came to disaster, simply because the original plan was too complicated. He learns that simplicity isn't just about making things easier, it's about making them effective. It ensures that when chaos erupts, everyone knows exactly what to do. Key lesson: complexity is the enemy of execution. When plans are simple, they're easier to understand and carry out, especially when things go wrong. In any project or task, simplify as much as possible to ensure everyone is on the same page and can act quickly when needed. Chapter 7: Prioritize and Execute. It's another tense morning in Ramadi. The sun has barely risen, but the streets are already bustling with activity. Jocko's team is stationed in a makeshift command center inside an old crumbling building, coordinating multiple operations throughout the city. Then, in a matter of moments, everything changes. Reports start flooding in over the radio. An insurgent ambush in one area, a roadside bomb in another, and, most urgently, an Allied unit pinned down by heavy enemy fire a few blocks away. The situation escalates quickly. It's like trying to juggle flaming torches while balancing on a tightrope. One wrong move, one misstep, and everything could fall apart. The pressure mounts, and the tension in the room is thick enough to cut with a knife. Everyone's talking at once, trying to figure out which crisis to handle first. Some soldiers suggest sending reinforcements to the pinned-down unit. Others argue they need to secure the area where the roadside bomb went off to prevent more attacks. It's chaos. Jocko steps in, taking a deep breath. He knows that panicking won't help anyone. He raises his voice above the noise, getting everyone's attention, and then he issues a simple command: relax. Look around. Make a call. He's reminding the team of a core principle: prioritize and execute. The room falls silent as Jocko assesses the situation. The pinned-down unit is the most immediate threat. If they don't get support soon, they'll be overrun. He makes a quick decision, ordering half the team to move out and reinforce the embattled unit, while the rest remain behind to keep an eye on the other threats. He lays out a clear path for the reinforcements, making sure they avoid the area where the roadside bomb was reported. As the soldiers gear up and head out, the rest of the team continues monitoring the other situations. The radio crackles with updates, and Jocko's team stays in constant communication, adapting their plan as new information comes in. Bit by bit, they work through each crisis, but they do it in order, handling the most dangerous threat first and moving down the list. The reinforcements reach the pinned-down unit just in time. With the extra firepower, they push back the insurgents, giving their allies a chance to regroup and retreat to safety. Meanwhile, back at the command center, the rest of the team coordinates a sweep of the area where the roadside bomb exploded, ensuring there are no further devices. By the end of the day, the team has managed to bring every situation under control without any casualties. They're tired, covered in dust, and drenched in sweat, but they know they've avoided a disaster. Afterward, Jocko gathers the team to debrief. He explains why they focused on the pinned-down unit first, and how prioritizing the threats allowed them to act decisively instead of getting overwhelmed. He tells them that in high-pressure situations, there will always be 100 things that demand attention, but the key is to tackle them one at a time, in order of importance. Key lesson: when everything seems urgent, it's easy to get overwhelmed. But panicking won't solve the problem. The solution is to step back, take a breath, and identify the most pressing issue. Focus on solving that first, and then move on to the next. Prioritize and execute, and you can handle any crisis. Chapter 8: Decentralized Command. The midday sun is scorching and the city is like an oven. Jocko's team is gearing up for a major operation, a mission that involves multiple platoons, each tasked with sweeping different sections of a heavily defended neighborhood. The scale of the operation is massive, and the risks are high. But there's a problem. Some of the less experienced officers seem uncertain, constantly checking in with Jocko for guidance on even minor details. They're nervous about making decisions without direct orders, worried about taking responsibility. Jocko realizes that if he tries to micromanage every aspect of this operation, it'll slow everything down and put the entire mission at risk. There's no way he can be everywhere at once, no way he can monitor each platoon's progress in real time. He knows that the only way this mission will succeed is if he trusts his junior leaders to take charge of their teams. So, Jocko calls in the platoon leaders for a briefing. He sits them down in a dimly lit room, the map of their target area spread out on a dusty table between them. He walks them through the overall strategy, showing how each platoon's actions fit into the bigger picture. But instead of giving them a rigid script to follow, he empowers them to make decisions in the field. He tells them, "You know your sectors, you know the mission, and you have my trust. If something goes wrong, don't wait for me to tell you what to do. Take the initiative and make the right call." At first, the younger leaders look a bit unsure, but as they take in Jocko's words, a new confidence starts to build. They realize that they're not just taking orders, they're responsible for their teams, and they have the freedom to adapt to whatever happens on the ground. The day of the mission arrives, and as soon as the platoons hit the streets, things start to go off script. One unit runs into an unexpected barricade, while another gets delayed by enemy sniper fire. But instead of freezing up and waiting for Jocko's instructions, the junior officers take charge. The leader of the first platoon coordinates a detour around the barricade, keeping his men moving forward. The second unit, pinned down by snipers, sets up a counter-sniper position and gradually works their way out of the kill zone. All the while, Jocko monitors the overall progress from the command center, but he doesn't need to micromanage. He knows his leaders are handling their situations, adapting and making decisions as they go. And by the end of the day, the neighborhood is secured, with every platoon completing their part of the mission. After the operation, Jocko gathers the team for a debrief and shares the importance of decentralized command. He points out how each leader's ability to take initiative saved time and lives, and he encourages them to keep thinking for themselves. He wants them to know that real leadership isn't about doing everything yourself, it's about empowering others to lead. Key lesson: a good leader doesn't try to control everything. Instead, they trust their team and give them the authority to make decisions. When people understand the mission and feel trusted to take action, they become more effective and resilient. Decentralized command ensures that no matter what happens, the team can adapt and keep moving forward. Chapter 9. Plan, but don't overplan. The sun is setting over Ramadi, casting long shadows across the city's rugged skyline. In a dusty makeshift base, Jocko's team huddles around a table covered with maps, building plans, and intelligence reports. Tomorrow's mission is a big one of the largest assaults they've attempted. The goal is to clear out a hostile building that has become a hub for insurgent activity. It's been fortified and rigged with traps, making it a dangerous task. As the team starts laying out their plan, the details begin to pile up. What route should they take to approach the building? Where should they place their snipers for cover? What's the fallback plan if they encounter heavier resistance than expected? It feels like every step requires a dozen contingencies. Jocko watches as his team dives deeper into the details, building layers upon layers of backup plans. At first, it's productive, but soon the planning session starts to drag. One team member proposes an alternate path through a side street, but it's quickly countered by another who thinks the main road offers better cover. Then, another team member points out potential ambush spots along the main road, leading to a debate about whether to bring in extra support for that route. What started as a focused mission brief has turned into a maze of what-ifs. Jocko steps in, sensing the mounting tension and confusion. He knows they're veering into dangerous territory, over-planning. He tells the team, "Look, we've got our main plan, it's good, but no plan survives first contact with the enemy. We can't account for every possibility. What we need is a simple, flexible plan that we can adjust once we're on the ground." He points out that while it's important to think through potential challenges, there's a limit. If they spend too much time preparing for every possible scenario, they'll lose focus and, worse, they might become paralyzed in the field if something unexpected happens. The team nods, understanding the message. They simplify their plan, focusing on a clear primary objective and outlining just a few key contingencies. The next morning, as the team moves into position, they encounter obstacles they hadn't fully anticipated, a series of new barriers blocking the streets they planned to use. But instead of panicking or trying to stick rigidly to their original route, they adapt on the fly, taking a different path and setting up their snipers on an adjacent building. Inside the hostile building, the situation shifts again. A hidden trapdoor reveals an underground tunnel system, and insurgents emerge from below. The team quickly reorganizes, splitting into smaller groups to cover the tunnel entrances and drive back the attackers. It's not the plan they had initially laid out. But because they had built a foundation that allowed for flexibility, they're able to adapt to the situation and keep pressing forward. After the mission, Jocko and the team review what happened. He emphasizes that while planning is critical, they must always be ready to adjust and adapt to the reality of the situation. Over-planning can create a false sense of security and leave a team vulnerable when things inevitably don't go as expected. Key lesson: a solid plan is essential, but too many details can bog you down. The most effective plans are simple and adaptable, allowing you to adjust to unexpected changes. Prepare thoroughly, but don't waste time obsessing over every possible scenario. Chapter 10: Leading up and down the chain of command. It's a hot afternoon in Ramadi, and tensions are running high between Jocko's team and another unit stationed nearby. The other unit, led by a senior officer, has been taking a different approach to operations, one that conflicts with how Jocko's team operates. Miscommunications have led to mistakes, and frustration is building on both sides. Jocko knows that if this situation isn't addressed soon, it could impact their ability to work together in the field. One afternoon, as Jocko and his team prepare for a joint mission with the other unit, the tension reaches a boiling point. The senior officer arrives, visibly frustrated, and starts questioning Jocko's decisions, arguing that they're too aggressive and risky. He suggests pulling back and adopting a more defensive posture for the operation. Jocko's team, who trusts his approach, starts to push back, defending their methods and questioning the other officer's caution. Jocko senses the divide widening, and knows that arguing won't solve the issue. Instead, he asks the senior officer to sit down and walk him through his concerns. He listens carefully as the officer explains his perspective, taking note of the points that are genuinely valid. Once the officer finishes, Jocko explains his own reasoning, why his team favors a proactive approach, and how they believe it can help secure the area more effectively. He makes it clear that he respects the other officer's experience and wants to find a middle ground that keeps everyone safe. By the end of the conversation, they've managed to reach a compromise, incorporating some of the senior officer's suggestions while maintaining the core elements of Jocko's strategy. The change in tone between them is noticeable. What started as a confrontation turns into a collaborative discussion, with both sides feeling heard and respected. When Jocko briefs his own team afterward, he emphasizes the importance of what just happened. He tells them that leadership isn't just about giving orders down the chain, it's also about managing up. Sometimes you have to help those above you see the bigger picture and understand your perspective, just like you work to understand theirs. He reminds them that this approach ensures smooth communication and trust up and down the chain of command. During the joint mission, the cooperation between the two units makes all the difference. With both sides aligned on the plan, they're able to move more quickly and efficiently through the streets, securing their objectives without incident. The newfound sense of teamwork transforms the dynamic between the units, leading to smoother operations going forward. Key lesson: leadership isn't just about giving orders to those below you, it's also about communicating effectively with those above you. A good leader works to align everyone, making sure that the team understands the mission and that superiors understand the challenges on the ground. Chapter 11: Discipline equals freedom. Imagine waking up at 4:30 a.m. every day, long before the sun rises. It's cold, dark, and the warmth of your bed is calling you to stay. But instead of hitting the snooze button, you roll out of bed, lace up your running shoes, and head outside. This is how Jocko starts his day: no excuses, no shortcuts. The discipline he shows in this simple act sets the tone for everything else he does. One of Jocko's most famous mantras is discipline equals freedom. It might sound like a contradiction at first. How can something as strict as discipline lead to freedom? But Jocko explains it like this: when you have discipline in your life, you gain control. You control how you spend your time, what goals you achieve, and how you respond to challenges. He shares a story about a fellow SEAL who struggled with physical conditioning during training. This guy had all the talent and raw strength, but he lacked consistency. He would show up to workouts sporadically, always with a new excuse: too tired, too busy, too sore from the last session. At first, he thought that by taking breaks and avoiding the hard work, he was giving himself more freedom. But when it came time for the real tests, the grueling, endless hours of training in the field, he couldn't keep up. He found himself exhausted, falling behind the rest of the team, and ultimately feeling trapped by his own lack of preparation. Jocko worked with him, emphasizing the importance of daily discipline. He encouraged the SEAL to show up every single day no matter how he felt. At first, the changes were small. The guy would show up to the gym reluctantly, dragging his feet. But as the weeks passed, he started to see the difference. His endurance improved, his strength grew, and he found that he was no longer just surviving training, he was thriving in it. The discipline he developed in his workouts started to bleed into other areas of his life too, his tactical skills, his decision-making, and even his personal relationships. Jocko explains to his team that discipline isn't about punishment. It's about taking ownership of your life and creating habits that build you up instead of hold you back. It's about getting up early, putting in the work, and doing the hard things when no one is watching. That's where real freedom comes from, the freedom to face any challenge, because you know you've prepared yourself for it. Key lesson: discipline isn't restrictive, it's empowering. It gives you the ability to make the hard choices, stick to your goals, and stay on track even when things get tough. By embracing discipline, you create the freedom to pursue your goals without being held back by excuses. Conclusion: take charge of your life with extreme ownership. Now that you've walked through the principles of extreme ownership, it's time to apply them to your own life. Remember, every lesson you've read here, whether it's owning mistakes, prioritizing the team over ego, staying humble, or being disciplined, comes down to one thing: taking full responsibility for your actions and decisions. It's not easy, but it's the foundation for true leadership, growth, and freedom. Here are some practical steps to get you started. 1. Own everything in your world. Take a look at your life, your job, your relationships. Where are things falling short? Instead of pointing fingers, take a deep breath and ask yourself, what could I have done better? This isn't about self-blame, it's about recognizing the power you have to make changes. When you take ownership of everything, you're no longer a victim of circumstances, you're in control. 2. Break down big goals into small, achievable steps. Maybe you have a big dream or a daunting challenge ahead. Don't let it overwhelm you. Like a complex mission, break it down into smaller, manageable parts. Focus on what you can do today, just the next step. Tackle it one piece at a time, adjusting as you go. Before you know it, you'll have made more progress than you thought possible. 3. Lead up and down the chain of command. Whether you're managing a team or working as part of one, practice clear communication and transparency. Help those around you understand your perspective, and take time to understand theirs. This applies to your boss, your coworkers, and even your family. When you bridge the gaps in understanding, you build trust and make it easier for everyone to achieve their goals. 4. Prioritize and execute. Life throws all kinds of challenges your way, but not every problem needs immediate attention. Learn to prioritize. Identify the most pressing issue and address it first. Then, move on to the next. When you're faced with a crisis, take a step back, take a breath, and then attack the problem with a calm, focused mind. 5. Embrace discipline. Start small, wake up a little earlier, work out consistently, set aside time to plan your day. Discipline isn't about being rigid, it's about setting yourself up for success. Build habits that give you the freedom to reach your goals. When you discipline yourself in the little things, you'll find that bigger challenges become easier to manage. 6. Focus on building a strong team. In any role, whether at work or at home, your success is often tied to the strength of the people around you. Invest time in helping others grow. Give them ownership of tasks, support them through challenges, and lead by example. When your team succeeds, you succeed. And when things go wrong, take the hit yourself and guide your team through the lessons learned. 7. Adapt and overcome. Plans will change, obstacles will appear, and things won't always go your way. Be prepared to adjust on the fly and adapt to whatever comes your way. Stay focused on the mission, but be ready to change the approach when the situation demands it. It's not about sticking to the plan at all costs. It's about being flexible and finding new ways to win. The principles of extreme ownership are meant to be lived, not just read. Start small, but start now. Make the choice to take ownership of every part of your life and watch how things begin to shift. You'll find yourself stronger, more resilient, and ready to face any challenge head-on. And remember, the path to leadership and success is a journey. Embrace each step, And don't be afraid to push beyond your comfort zone. Your mission starts today. Take ownership, lead with purpose, and create a life you can truly be proud of. Thank you for completing another BrevRead video. Like and subscribe to see more of our videos. If you have a particular book that you would like us to summarize, please share it in the comments section below.